Hey everybody, Steve Colescott here for elitefts.com. I'm sending video questions over to Brian Schwab for him to reply back to us. Brian, you've had probably more longevity of anyone that is still competing at such a high level. Can you tell me what type of injuries you've had to overcome, and probably, how many meets do you think you've actually done in your career thus far?
Steve, I actually haven't really had any serious injuries. I did have a partial pec tear when I first started training, but that was back in around 1995. And at that point, I realized that I had to make adjustments to my training to prevent that from happening again. I've had the usual shoulder and knee aches and pains, but nothing serious. I've never even had to go in for an MRI. I did have a partial bicep tear while I was training for Relentless Detroit, but I was able to rehab that in enough time to still compete in the meet. So like I said, I've never had any real serious injuries, which I think is a pretty good sign that my training method works. As far as how many meets I've competed in, since I've been competing for almost 20 years at about 3 meets a year, I'd say I've done close to 60 meets.
So Brian, how have you managed to avoid any type of career-ending injury?
I think that there are a few reasons why I've been able to avoid injury. One is because I do a very simple cardio warm-up before every training session. I do at least a 5 to 10 minute cardio warm-up either on the treadmill or driving the sled, pushing the prowler, any of those just to increase my body temperature, which I think is something that a lot of powerlifters tend to avoid. But like I've said in the past, a few minutes of that can save you from months or even years of rehab. Secondly, my training method is based off of a gradually increasing range of motion. So you're not continually squatting, to depth or benching off your chest or pulling off the floor every week. You work your way down a box for squatting, or you use accommodating resistance with bands or chains. Same thing on the bench. You either work your way down the boards, or you could use reverse bands or chains accompanying the boards, and lastly, with the deadlift, you work your way down blocks or down the power rack, and I think that has a lot to do with it. You can overload your CNS through a limited range of motion while reducing the stress on your joints. So that's how I've been able to have such longevity in the sport.
And Brian, do you feel that the fact that you are in one of the lighter weight classes has helped extend your career because there is less strain on your body?
No, Steve, I really don't think being in a lighter weight class has had anything to do with it, just for the fact that it's all relative. I've squatted 5 times body weight. I've benched and deadlifted 3 times body weight. I've totaled almost 13 times body weight. So relatively, I'm lifting a significant amount over my body weight. So I really don't think that's had anything to do with it.
And do you do any type of special warm-up or any type of restorative work like foam rolling, massage, active release to help keep your body healthy?
Yes, Steve. As I mentioned before, I always perform a minimum of a 5-minute cardiovascular warm-up, usually on the treadmill, just because it's the easiest thing to do. But you could also push the prowler or drag the sled. The basic principle of that is just to increase your body temperature before lifting rather than just jumping right into it. Yes, I do foam roll. Actually, I've graduated to the PVC now just because the foam isn't hard enough anymore to loosen me up as much as I need for it to. I know there's a little bit of controversy around that, but I think that foam rolling is ideal to loosen your muscles without actually stretching them, which will help prevent injury without reducing the stretch reflex. And I also do an isolated warm-up prior to benching with shoulder rotation and prior to squatting and deadlifting with TKEs. And lastly, I do get a massage, just a half-hour massage every other week, which I think helps to reduce the potential for injury as well.